So, Scott, I know that you recently went on a cruise because you saw a very brief glimpse of Canada while you were there.
That's
and
true, I did.
Your only Canada experience so far is you saw like an ugly part of Victoria.
it was my first time ever leaving the country, which I know on this show we talk about you traversing the world like you're Carmen Sandiego. I have never left the States until, well, I guess I did when I was a little kid because I lived in Michigan and we also went to Canada, but I don't remember that. So I will say for the first time in my adult life, I've left the country, went to Canada for about 2.5 hours, and I said that was enough. And I got right back on that big boat.
What was your experience?
It was great, actually. We got a lot of good photos. In fact, a lot of my favorite photos from the trip were from that little excursion that we did. We just walked around and it was just, it was like golden hour. Got some really great photos. It's great. It was a good time. And it was very pretty, that whole area. We literally didn't do anything but walk around. But I did send you a photo and I tried so hard to find the ugliest, like worst backdrop to send you a photo that was like, so this is Canada, huh? And it was just like a docking station for the boat, and it was just not very pretty.
Yeah, but like Victoria's absurdly pretty.
But Victoria's so pretty. And like, again, all the photos that we took there were like some of the prettiest photos from the entire trip that we went on. But yeah, I was just like, oh, this is Canada, huh? Just really tried to put you down like I'm a big bully.
Mm-hmm. That entire like west coast of Canada, like all of British Columbia, is super, super pretty.
It was very nice.
You didn't even get to go to the mainland and see all like the mountains and stuff.
No,
we
did go to Alaska.
Yeah. Question: did you see any ghost ships while you were at sea?
Ghost ships. How would I know?
Ghost ships.
Thank you for the clarification. Did I see any ghost ships? Because like we did see other ships, but would a ghost ship be like semi-transparent, and would that be like a dead giveaway? Giveaway?
Well, we're going to try and answer that question tonight.
Oh, okay.
Because
normally this show, by the way, this is a podcast. Normally this show is about aliens, but I guess we're doing ghosts now?
Well, we'll see. This is an interesting podcast called It's Probably Not Aliens. I'm Scott Nicewander. I owe nothing about...
That's wrong.
Oh, sorry.
Nope, we're doing it in the wrong order.
Take two.
I'm Scott Nicewander. I come to this show knowing nothing, but I do know that along the way we're going to look into ancient astronaut theory and the History Channel show Ancient Aliens, and we're going to debunk a lot of those theories and conspiracies while learning about the real world history behind cool people, places, and things, all of those nouns. And you've probably heard by now, I'm not the only person on this show. Who else is here?
Yeah, hello,
Who
folks.
else is here with us right now? Are there spirits here with us right now?
Yeah, I'm communicating this entire podcast via Ouija board. It's an extremely slow process. The editing is insane. My name is Tristan Johnson, and I do this somehow. I read the things and find the information to inflict upon the audience as I will. I think that's the right verb.
Yes. Yeah. Inflict wounds upon the audience.
1d6 psychic damage per episode.
I like your somehow I do this. Somehow I do.
I still don't know how I do it every week.
It's a very correct. I don't know how I do it, and I don't do anything. I show up and I just sit here and I listen and I learn. But you actually do the research, and I don't know. This is because we're both YouTubers as well, and like this is sort of the YouTube busy season right now because that AdSense is real hot with the holiday season coming up, and it's got a lot going on. But we have this podcast to do too.
It's a lot of fun. I do. I mean, the way that I do it is that I work on videos for months and months and months, and you just sort of what's it called? When it's time to make a video or an episode, it's just like that's when I'm almost done researching actually. The way that also I do it is that I'm fueled entirely by spite, that I am just so mad at the show that I need to make this all happen.
Yeah.
This is probably like a peak on like spite-driven content, because this is another one, kind of like our episode on the Will-o'-the-Wisps and such. This is sort of, this comes, I think, those two episodes might have come from the same paragraph.
From Ancient Aliens, from the show Ancient Aliens. We're going sentence by sentence debunking the show Ancient Aliens, because they cram pack a whole bunch of BS into each episode.
Yeah, they're big on what's called the Gish Gallop, where they just sort of throw so many things at you that you can't even respond to them in time. But I refuse to be Gish Galloped, even if it takes 1,000 years.
So what is this about? We're talking about ghost ships.
Yeah, so basically this is the idea. This goes to probably one of the worst and darkest corners of America, the cursed place known only in whispers to those who are afraid to speak its name out loud.
Connecticut, that's where Gilmore Girls is.
Well, we are going to a place with the ominous name of New Haven.
I've heard of this place. It's like the Old Haven, but fresher.
Mm-hmm. And we're talking about a man by the name of Cotton Mather, which is just quite a name.
Yes.
Who is the prodigal son of his very famous father, Increase Mather, who apparently just picked a random name out of the dictionary to name every child. So basically, here is the entirety of the Ancient Aliens claim on this.
Yep.
Cotton Mather wrote in a book, and I'll get into this in more details, but wrote that some people in New Haven saw a spectral light in the sky. And their conclusion was, probably aliens.
Probably aliens.
And that was like, I bet it's not aliens, just given the sort of O and 59 streak that we're going on here.
More than actually O and 59, because we've done a couple grab bag episodes.
Yeah. So O and 62 or 63 and such. Yeah. And so I started looking into them like, okay, what's really going on here? Because I know who Cotton Mather is. Cotton Mather is a figure. I'll talk a little bit about him, but basically he's a guy, a known quantity in American history if you study early colonial America. So we'll get to that. But first I want to I want to talk about the people that he is referring to and like what this story actually was, because it just was like a couple sentences in the Ancient Alien show. And I was like, okay, well, what's the actual story here?
Hit me with it.
Okay, so let me tell you about New Haven. The first people to arrive in New Haven started arriving in the 1630s. So we are going way, way, way back for this one.
Way back.
And basically they lived in this area trying to get away from the sinful, not quite as perfect Puritans in the sinful places like New Amsterdam or Manhattan or Boston. Mm-hmm. And they decided to go further upriver to make an even more religiously uptight society and make this colony that would specifically focus on trading furs and selling goods up the Connecticut River to those bigger colonies. And they would go out to sea. That was the whole idea. Build this little colony. It'll be great.
Mm-hmm. The more up the river you go, the closer you are to God. Mm-hmm. So
the problem was that basically none of that worked.
Oh.
And they were kind of at their wits' end about like, how do we make things? And apparently they were focused on all of these tasks and not on other tasks like farming or growing crops. So
the stuff that would keep you alive if you needed food.
Very bad at playing the video game Banished, because I know what happens is if in Banished you don't grow any food, all the people start dying.
It's just like real life.
Yeah. So basically in 1646, this didn't really go through, and they decided to pick up a new business, which was the art of shipbuilding.
Can you pronounce that again? The
dash building.
P.
Yeah,
P, right?
Yeah,
you said it so quickly. I thought you were saying a naughty word.
Oh no, I would never say a naughty word here on this podcast, this family-friendly Christian podcast.
Yeah, that's right.
So they were getting into making boats, or setting up fan fiction relationships between fictional characters. They were doing both,
which is also a sin, by the way. I'm kidding. It's not.
Shipping is a sin, fan fiction writers.
Oh no, we're gonna get a lot of hate.
I don't care what Castiel and one of the brothers love each other or something.
Yeah, I don't know that. I know what show you're talking about, but I've never seen
Sam and Dean. The Sam and Castiel, that's a sin, I guess.
Well, it's got to be Dean, right?
Oh, is Dean?
It's Dean and Cat, because it's Destiel is the ship.
Right.
We can't get into that. We can't get into this. People are going to eat us alive on the internet.
That's the best
we don't
part.
know what we're talking about.
I'm the other day I was like, whatever happened to that guy? And then I'm like, maybe I should. And then I'm like, I'm going to go watch this new season of The Boys. And then the guy who played Dean Winchester is like the Captain America, the not Captain America in that season.
Oh, fun.
The one who's like not singing in all the memes.
Oh, no, I've not seen the newest season. That's not me.
Well, if you want to know what Dean Winchester looks like as Captain America, there you go. Anyways, so basically they desperately were like, okay, we need food and things. Okay. So they built a ship, to quote from the writing, with almost all the strength that was left in them, they built one more ship.
Oh, that's so dramatic. I like it.
Yeah. And apparently this ship was, they built this ship in Rhode Island, another cursed part of America. And the idea is that they would load it up with their best supplies in the colony and send it back to England. And that they would go to England and sell these things and come back with all sorts of goodies that they could then save the settlers in.
Yeah. How long is it to England anyway by ship? Couldn't possibly be very long.
Yeah, I think it's about 6 weeks round trip. And that is, yeah. So in January of 1647, they sent this ship out. Apparently there was already problems because when it left New Haven, they had to cut through the ice to get out of the harbor.
Great.
The cursed way that they read it is, with many fears as well as prayers and tears, they set sail.
Ooh.
And they let it go. They let it go with probably the most like hardcore Puritan way that you possibly could. Now, this is the blessing that was given to the ship by the leader or the founder of New Haven, Reverend John Davenport. And his way to say things was, Lord, if it be thy pleasure to bury these, our friends at the bottom of the sea, they are thine, save them. That was the prayer they sent when they like left. That was their way of like wishing good luck, is that, hey God, if you want to take the ship down, we're cool with that.
Hey man, your will be done. You know, if we're sinners because we're shipping, strike us down now.
Yes. The Game Boy person and the guy with the rabbit ears in Adventure Time.
Yes.
I'm just going to, every time you say ship, I'm going to make up a new ship from a franchise that I don't know.
Fantastic.
And see where it goes.
Excellent. So what happened then? Did they get struck down?
Well, here's what happened. The ship left.
Yep.
And then spring came.
Okay.
And other ships came from England.
Sure.
But not this one.
No.
And people started to worry. They didn't know where it went. But also, as they were worried, they prayed that the Lord would, if it's pleasure, let them hear what they done their will with their dear friends and prepared them for suitable submission to his holy will.
So they were like, if they're dead, at least let us know and let us know why.
Yeah, basically.
Gotcha.
Then in 1647, June, so 6 months after the departing of this ship, a thunderstorm struck New Haven. And after the storm, just before sunset, apparently people went out to the harbor's mouth and saw something extraordinary.
What'd they see?
Moving against the wind, a specter-light vessel, her her sails full, moving by some unseen wind. And it looked, from a distance, like it was the exact same ship that had left in January.
But that ship was dead, maybe.
Yeah.
And then so they saw a ghost ship.
Apparently for half an hour, they watched it approach, some even getting close enough that they estimated that they could reach it with a stone. Then it began to fall apart.
They could throw a stone at? They could throw a rock at it?
Yeah, they got that close. But then apparently some invisible storm tore it apart. And as the mast fell, its sails were torn and ripped away, and the ship seemed to careen and sink, vanishing into a smoky cloud.
How funny would that be if it wasn't a ghost ship at all and it was just a regular ship that needed help and everyone was like, oh, that's what happened. Well, at least we have answers. And there are actual living people out there needing help. Like, is anyone going to help us? You guys are a stone's throw away. Literally. Please come and help us.
Oh my God. Good times, the 17th century. So a lot of people witnessed this, and their basic assumption was that this was sort of like a spectral replication of the past. Like their prayers had been answered. They found out what happened to the ship.
God gave them a little replay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And so that is the story. That is what ancient aliens said. It's probably an aliens, probably a UFO.
Probably an alien. You know what's funny though is we've done a lot of like debunking like UFO sightings in the the past on this show. Like we've done a lot of it. So far, this is the first one that the Ancient Aliens is claiming a spaceship to like be like a Earth ship. You know what I mean? Like it's a boat, but they're just like, it's not
Sorry,
just
you said
a ship
again. I'm going to go with Yoli and TK. Let's do a deep cut on that one.
I don't know what that means.
That is season 2 of the Digimon anime.
Wow. I thought you were supposed to do ships about shows you didn't know, but you had that deep cut going.
Yeah, that'll be one. Well,
all right.
Time will come.
We'll circle back. So this, Ancient Aliens is like, that ghost ship was a spaceship, actually.
Yeah.
It has ship in the name.
Yeah, basically. So that is how deep Ancient Aliens goes on this. Just so you know, the quality of the research you're getting when you're watching the hit, like 16 seasons deep, multi-million-dollar producing TV show.
Is there any other reason why they would claim this to be a UFO sighting other than it's just, I don't know, people saw weird stuff?
I think in many ways that their plan was, this was part of like an overall section where they were talking about UFO sightings in early America. And they're like, look, there's sightings all over the place. We got this, this, and this. And they were just hoping that you didn't look into it too hard.
Oh, just rapid fire.
Yeah.
I get you.
And all of this sort of is documented in a book that was written by Cotton Mather called Magnalia Christi Americana, which came out in 1702, about 50 years after the ghost ship sighting.
What does that translate to?
Magnalia Christi translates to the glorious works of Christ in America.
All right.
So there you go.
We got to see how this ship was destroyed. Thanks, Jesus.
So yeah, a book of miracles. Chicken soup for the Puritan soul. We saw how our friends died. And I'm traumatized about it, but at least I have closure. It's all right. 3 of my 10 kids survived to adulthood. I'm pretty traumatized. Yeah. I have almost all of my fingers. Things are great. So apparently he got this story from a pastor in New Haven who didn't see it himself, but spoke to several people who had. So this is a third-hand account of what happened. Mm-hmm. And apparently also this story had a habit of changing and growing over the years. And I think where the Ancient Aliens people picked up is that about a year afterwards, the story morphed so that the ship came in the sky.
So flying ship. And then when you hear flying ship, you think spaceship. Also, what is give me one. A flying one.
A flying one. 2 of the Megazords from different seasons of Power Rangers. Kissing.
Yeah.
No, what's it called? The Megazord from Power Rangers and the knockoff Megazord from the one where they go into the computer.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember what that one was called. Nope, I remembered it came fully formed into my head. Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad.
Whoa. So, and they had a flying.
And so they make out, they kiss. The Megazord and the Superhuman Samurai in the internet.
I was rooting for them. A real enemies to lovers, I think.
Yeah. Enemies to lovers. Yeah, there you go. So, so that's sort of like the thing.
Yeah, that's
in the sky.
Cronenberg's the thing. Yep.
Yeah, Cronenberg's the thing. So basically this went around as a story that showed about the folly of caring too much about making money, because basically the lesson became that God struck them down for wanting to make money by sending the ship.
Weren't they going for just to survive, to get things like supplies and money and stuff to survive though?
I mean, I feel like even like keep in mind how many buckles were on these people's hats.
Yeah.
Like they were like, getting money to survive is also like, greed.
All right. Hey, I'm not going to, I agree. I also agree that things that you should be able to survive for free without having to pay anything. I also agree that every human should be able to survive on the planet for free.
Yeah. These are the kind of things where I said, I feel like controversially a while back that I think the main problem with our world is not that we're too materialistic, but it's that we're not materialistic enough. That we care too much about determining who is and isn't greedy instead of like, making sure everyone has the stuff that they need.
Give people the stuff they need to survive.
And it is possible that a lot of people did see something. There was a storm. Lightning is a thing. It might have been, It was also sunset. The sun is a thing.
I mean, we've talked so many times about how like UFOs sightings in the past could just be like funky clouds.
Yeah. And like the sky after a thunderstorm at sunset, you can imagine all sorts of interesting light things could happen.
Absolutely.
But UFO people like to point out that this might be a proof, because this is like kind of from the episode, and we talked about this a long time ago in our episode on Renaissance art, that there's been this like scouring of the historical record for anything that looks like a UFO, because then it can establish an answer to the very uncomfortable fact that UFO sightings started around the time that UFO, like flying saucers, started showing up in science fiction.
They have to dive back into the depths of history to be like, no, see, other people saw this stuff before it showed up in movies. Mm-hmm. So that means it's real. Mm-hmm. And you know what? I agree. I used to be the person on this show that would come into it with an open mind, and I feel like I've been slipping. You've been tainting me. So you know what? Yes. This was an alien.
Okay.
Take that, Tristan.
Citation needed. But okay.
Prove me wrong.
This was written by Cotton Mather, who you might remember because you probably had to remember his name for like your AP US history test or something at some point. He's one of those colonial, like big leaders in like early colonial America. Couple hints about him, not to take down his takes or anything like that, because he's the person who wrote this, but it just so happened that the story intersected with a pretty big name. Basically, he's known for being both a believer and a retroactive defender of the Salem witch trials.
Okay. All right.
Furthermore, he tried several times and failed to become the president of Harvard. So he decided to go off and make his own university, which eventually became Yale.
Gilmore Girls. That's where Rory goes. Okay. All right.
So anybody who goes to Yale might know Cotton Mather, because he was like, the founder of Yale, basically. And he was one of the big advocates for like citizen science, and was actually really into getting people smallpox inoculations. Now, this is a long time before vaccines, but there was this whole thing where you could inoculate somebody, where you take the pus from somebody who has smallpox or cowpox, which is like a weaker version of smallpox, and you prick people with it, and they'll get mild symptoms, but then they'll be resistant to smallpox.
And he liked it. He was pro-vaccine.
Pro-vaccine. Actually, the term vaccine comes from like the term vacas, which is sort of like the like Romance word for cow, because of cowpox.
Oh. Real mixed bag on this Cotton Mather guy, huh?
Yeah.
Some good, some bad. If that's not humanity in a nutshell, I don't know.
But yeah, extremely hardcore Christian, and also son of Increase Mather. Just like
super hardcore Christian, but vaccinations are cool though.
Yeah.
But I like those.
So all the people who are talking about like unproven technology and stuff like that, vaccines are like hundreds of years old. Don't even play.
Don't even play. Cotton Mather was into it.
He was Christian
of all
as fuck.
people. Yeah.
So then,
he hated all the young girls that did the magic.
Yeah.
That he thought. He just hated them.
Although
he loved vaccines.
You can get into the Salem witch trials. It turns out that it might have started off with like witnessing some sort of like some healing that happened, because there was a slave there named Tituba, and she might have helped somebody with some medicine by doing basically what was like her native African like folk medicine.
Tristan, I am almost positive that we will do a whole episode about.
Yeah, I can't wait to see the Salem witch trials wasn't aliens. I can't wait.
Guarantee you the show does Salem witch trials as aliens.
Okay, all right, I'll save it for that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, then the whole question comes together like, what's going on? It's sort of like, what's it called? From our modern perspective, it is kind of sus to see a ship in the sky.
Yeah.
So what is going on? Why is Ancient Aliens trying to say it's a UFO, and what could it actually be?
Well, like I said, I'm on board with the UFO thing. I think it sounds cool, and I think you're going to have to do a lot of work to prove that it's not really aliens.
Well, luckily, I somehow did. And we're going to find out after this.
Okay.
I'm going to say Professor Membrane and Zim.
Thank you.
I've never watched Invader Zim. I just know it's a thing that people did watch. So I assume that that's a thing.
You know, it had Gurr. People loved Gurr. You remember Gurr?
Nope. I've never seen an episode of Invader Zim, so I have no idea what this is.
You know the TikTok sound where it's like, I made it myself.
No,
like
I haven't even gotten that. I haven't even gotten the TikTok sound. It's wild.
All right. People love Gurr. Ask anyone who was on Tumblr ever.
Yeah. I did
Gurr.
not Tumblr a whole lot. That's probably why I don't know much about Invader Zim. But yeah, so according to skeptics, that there might be other phenomenon that could cause it. And also, again, there's like a bit of misunderstanding the culture surrounding what's going on and all that kind of stuff. But basically, it's sort of like the same way that strange weather phenomenon becomes a divine vision of a lost ship sent by God, in the same way that like a UFO after World War II came up in the sort of science fiction craze in the latter half of the 20th century, in the sense that people see something weird in the sky and they interpret it through whatever cultural lens that they have in the time. For them, it was a ship and a ghost in the sky. And for people today, it's aliens. But this also delves deep into the phenomenon of ghost ships.
Yes.
And the wind is a little bit taken out of our sails because on Halloween... Yeah.
Like a ship, like a ghost ship.
A little bit taken out of the sails is that on Halloween Day, Kazro, the best history YouTuber on YouTube, they made a whole video on ghost ships, basically getting into a whole bunch of what I am about to talk about right now.
The only ghost ship that I know of in pop culture, and I don't even know if it is a ghost ship, but I think it is the Flying Dutchman?
Yeah, we're going to get into the Flying Dutchman.
Exciting!
Yeah. But also, if you guys haven't, if you like history at all, go watch Kazro, K-A-Z space R-O-W-E. They're an amazing YouTuber that I don't every time I see people talking about history YouTubers, I don't know why they don't completely dominate the conversation, because they're probably the best on the site right now. So go watch Kazro. So basically, like, a ghost ship is built in the fact that there's always been a lot of superstition surrounding maritime traditions. And we see this through all of human history. For example, one weird superstition we have about ships, we feel compelled to give them names.
That is true.
And that is a thing that we have been doing for thousands of years. Furthermore, whenever we launch a ship, there's always some sort of ceremony involved. Ancient Babylonians used to pour bitumen over the hull and sacrifice oxen.
Whoa.
Ancient Greeks used to take an olive branch headgear and put it on. They would drink wine, honor the gods, and pour water over the vessel in blessing.
That's awesome.
And even Ottomans would have a feast and sacrifice sheep before pushing the ship off.
Okay.
The one that we're probably familiar with is that you take a bottle of wine and smash it against the hull.
You smash it. And there's a lot of fail compilations of people just damaging boats, brand new boats, as they smash these wine bottles or champagne bottles or whatever against it.
Which you can imagine through superstition, in a superstitious lens, is probably not a good omen.
No, probably not.
So yeah, but like that's the thing we do in the West. It's supposed to be basically like christening or baptizing the ship.
Yeah. Boy, imagine if we did that to people, though. Just like if you baptize,
just smash like a bottle of wine over this baby's head.
Well done, my child.
That they tried. One religious sect tried that, except the fact that it didn't last long because every baby died in childhood, and they don't understand why.
They don't understand why. They didn't get God's approval, original sin, and all that.
This is why like I'm genuinely curious about how that Protestant sect where they handle snakes is still around, because their leadership just keeps dying from getting bitten by snakes. Because apparently, according to them, there's a belief in the Bible that if you are a true of heart Christian, you will be immune to poison.
Oh.
And so part of their like services is that the preacher holds a venomous snake in their hands.
Okay.
And like the current head of this sect in 2018 went to the ICU for like a month because he got bitten by a snake. And like 5 years earlier, the head of the church was his dad, who died after getting bit by a snake.
Well, so here's their problem, Tristan. if it says that they will be immune to poison, it doesn't say that they will be immune to venom. They're doing it wrong.
Yeah, there you go. What's it called? Poison, you die if you eat it, and venom, you die. Or no, poison, you die if you bite it, and venom, you die if it bites you.
Yeah, they're doing it wrong. They might be immune to poison, but they're just handling a lot of these venomous snakes. They're doing it way wrong.
Just shows the creative places that religion can go. But yeah, sometimes a ghost ship is a phantom ship, and basically this is the idea that you will see a ship in the ocean that has nobody on board. I think that the difference is like a phantom ship is supposed to be like sort of like a see-through ghosty ship, and a ghost ship is a physical ship scene that has no crew. And that is a thing that's been around for a while, because even though it's associated with supernatural stuff, it actually does happen, because like if, as we kind of mentioned in our Bermuda Triangle episode.
I was going to say, we've talked about this in the Bermuda Triangle episode.
Like if a ship is moored to a dock and gets let go somehow, or if the crew abandons ship for whatever reason, the ship doesn't necessarily sink, and you might just pass another ship that has nobody on it.
Yeah, it might just keep going.
Which you can imagine is kind of creepy.
Yeah.
But also it can refer to like a ghostly ship, like the Flying Dutchman, which is sort of a fictional ship. But it has been, there have been Flying Dutchman spottings throughout history. Or, like I said, an adrift derelict ship with the missing crew, like the Mary Celeste, which is another famous ghost ship from American history. Or I don't know if it's from American history, but a famous ship.
Well, the Flying Dutchman even says that it's flying in the name.
The Flying Dutchman is the place where you can get all you can eat seafood. That's a Simpsons reference, everybody. In the Simpsons, there's a Simpsons episode where it is a great plot for an episode where all you can eat seafood restaurant comes out called the Frying Dutchman. Great name. No notes.
Oh, that's good.
But then Homer gets kicked out and he still wants to eat, and then he sues the buffet because he didn't get all he could eat. It's a great plot. Everybody, it's great.
I've rarely ever watched The Simpsons, so now it'll be my turn to ship people from a show that I've not seen. I'm gonna do Krusty and Mo. Mo? Is there a Mo?
Yeah, it's a bartender.
Awesome.
Interesting. I think they're voiced by the same guy too. Maybe not.
Well, there you go. And then their children will have this very similar voices.
I think they might not be. I can't remember, but I feel like they're all, because there's this whole thing with Krusty where he's voiced by the same guy who plays Homer, because early when the show was starting, they were going to have it so that Homer was secretly Krusty, but then they decided not to go through
They look so similar. Yeah.
So that's the thing, is that a ghost ship often like is a thing that happens, but then gets like legends built up around it after they've been abandoned.
Gotcha.
And then also becomes like associated with these sort of like supernatural stuff.
Yeah. So I know the Flying Dutchman by name, but is there like there's like a proper story behind that one?
More or less, it's like a story where people might see this ship, this ghostly ship that sort of rides above the water, like slightly above the water. Okay. And if you see that's like, it's a bad omen. Bad things are going to happen.
Gotcha.
Basically, it's a big part of like maritime lore, that it's this ship that's doomed to sail the seas forever because it can never make port. Apparently, it has some origins in the 1600s, but there are many different stories and myths surrounding it. It might be like a kind of like, sailor's fable to talk about arrogance and recklessness at sea, because they know that like, not being safe at sea can be very dangerous. And so this sort of becomes like a note about that. And oftentimes seeing it is supposed to be like a sign that like doom or death is going to come soon.
Yeah. And not only is not being safe at sea dangerous, not being safe anywhere is dangerous. I feel like that's the definition of danger, not being safe.
But like being at sea is a dangerous thing. Like, especially in olden times, going out to sea, there's a whole, I'll get into this a little bit, but like, every time a ship leaves shore, there's like a little bit of a gamble, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, all I was thinking about on my cruise was, boy, I hope we don't see icebergs. And we very specifically went to a glacier, but a glacier is just moving ice, which feels like an iceberg with an agenda. Like it's like an iceberg that's like, I'm coming to get you. You stay right there. I'm coming to get you.
Oh boy.
But we were fine.
I'm glad that you made it home. Then you would be a ghost, and that would make the last few podcasts very interesting.
yeah, very tricky.
But basically, like, there's a lot of stories, sea stories of people seeing ships that are known to have gone missing or have sunk. Or ships that just become haunted because like people have been seeing ghosts or paranormal activity on the ship. And the most famous one is probably the Queen Mary.
Oh, I've heard of the Queen Mary. Is that that's in California currently, right?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah.
The Queen Mary has a lot of ghost ships and it's known to be cursed. And there's like a long history of like ships getting a rumor that they are cursed and crews, like people not willing to sail on it because they feel like it has like bad omens attached to it. So there's like I said, it's all part of like this very intricate set of superstition associated with sailing. But what it probably is most likely is something called a superior mirage, which I think is really interesting. Sometimes it's called Fata Morgana, but it's this idea that in certain conditions you can see, like if there's a lot of moisture in the air and the atmosphere and light is all in the right way, you might be able to see objects that are over the horizon or very far away as if they are a lot closer. And sometimes you can see things that aren't there. And sometimes you can see these mirages in a weird way where it looks like they're almost floating above the water.
Yes. So a couple of years ago when my YouTube channel did a lot more science related stuff than I do right now, I made a video about, of all things, Captain Cold from The Flash. And in the early comics, he used to use his like ice gun, his freeze gun to like create mirages to trick the Flash. Now they were spectacular and like fantastical, like he would make monsters appear or whatever out of nothing. But what I talked about in the video is exactly this, where like certain differences in temperature and atmosphere and the way that the light hits certain things and like the way that light travels through the, you know, differences in the temperature and atmosphere and things like that can create exactly this sort of stuff. And there are, and you can look it up and maybe we'll tweet out some photos on Probs Not Aliens Twitter account. There are very, very interesting, like modern photos of this phenomenon that people take where you can see what looks like a ship floating above the water. If it's far enough out to the horizon, like it'll look like the ship is just hovering above it and it'll look like it's a flying ship. Yeah. And they're like modern real photos that, and it's because it's a thing that still happens. And because, yeah, it's always been happening.
Yeah. And Captain Cold, it makes sense too, because this is a phenomenon that happens a lot in the Arctic.
Yes.
So you could imagine if, say, conditions were right, like there has to be a lot of moisture in the air, like say maybe right after a thunderstorm, and the light has to be doing something weird, like say right before the sun goes down, that somebody like say maybe a handful of people in New Haven, Connecticut might have seen a ship floating above the water that also seemed to fall apart as the mirage dissolved, and they concluded that that was a vision of, say, another ship that they were looking for.
I knew about superior mirages and I did not put it together that is how like ghost ships potentially could have come about. That's so interesting to me. All right, you caught me on this one. I wanted you to prove that ghost ships and spaceships, aliens and stuff was wrong in this case, and I think this does it because there are like, again, I can't stress enough, there are tons of photos of this exact thing.
Yeah.
That you can Google, and it's really cool.
But also I think it speaks a lot to like why have so many superstitions like this. And I think that one of the things that we in our like modern age where our forms of transportation are safe and we don't have to leave for months at a time, we don't travel that long anymore. But like, there's all sorts of traditions and things like, for example, a lot of times wives of sailors will light candles by the shore in hopes that, you know, it'll guide their husbands home. And like the idea that it, like, you know, sailors, like one big thing about their job is that it's dangerous and there is a very reasonable chance that, you know, one day you're going to leave and you will not come back. And
yeah,
you can imagine that situation there'd be a lot of cultural buildup around it, and things like ghost ships being like, because if you think about it, right, like we know a lot about death and grieving, and we know that when people die in a situation like at sea where there's no body, there's no closure, there's not even like 100% knowing what happened.
Yeah, and I think, I joked about it earlier, but But you're exactly right. Like, people want closure. They want to know what happened. And so if they see something like this, you know, especially in the past where they couldn't quite understand what was happening, like I'll go out on a limb here and I'll say, I think this is probably exactly what happened, you know, like seeing a ship even, you know, in the sky or whatever, right? Because that's what these mirages can do. I feel like this is probably, it feels right to me that this is probably what happened. And you could interpret that, not understanding fully how that happens. People would probably definitely interpret it as like, you know, this, I just needed closure on this, what happened to our friends and our family that went out. And I just want to know. And this feels like a supernatural sort of sign that is like, here's what happened. And yeah, I feel like if I was in desperate need of closure and explanations and things like that, I would believe that. Now, these people back then did not believe that it was aliens. They believed that it was, you know, like God's explanation for what happened to the ship. The alien thing was tacked on much later.
Yeah. And I would also say that if there's one thing we learned on this show is that motivated reasoning is an extremely powerful force.
Yes.
People will believe really ridiculous things if they have another motivation where they want that to be the case.
And yeah, I mean, this is exactly because this specific story tackles it in two different ways, right? It's the original story of people being, you know, thinking that it was a message from God about like, this is what happened to that ship. And then you get the ancient astronaut theorists who look back on it and are just like, actually, this was aliens. And we will project the alien part onto it. Because it doesn't even, I don't know if Ancient Aliens goes into any more detail. Like, what would be the reasoning behind it's just aliens. Just aliens happened and they were there coincidentally.
Yeah, I mean, like the way that they would say it is like, well, these people saw a light in the sky and interpreted it as a ship because that's the way that they would have interpreted things. Because we've seen a lot that people in the past seem to be incapable of just describing shapes and colors. And they always have to say that it's a thing that is not that, so that they can reinterpret writings to be UFOs. They're like, of course they wouldn't know. They wouldn't be. The word for circle didn't exist back then. The word for metallic didn't exist back then, obviously.
Right. Right. They're like, they had no other way of describing it other than a ship. And when they said ship, what they meant was spaceship.
It's because we didn't invent adjectives until World War II.
Exactly. Now, you and I said the word ship a whole bunch in this end thing. So I think I'll do one half of a ship and then you can do another half of a ship. And they don't have to be from the same show.
Okay.
So like a show I know nothing about is
Gravity Falls.
A show I know so little about, I will have to Google who is in it, what characters' names are. I am going to ship. I want to make sure it's a character who's old. Grunkle Stan. That feels like an old character. I'm going to ship Grunkle Stan. And who are we shipping Grunkle Stan with?
Special Agent Dale Cooper from the show Twin Peaks. Another show I don't know anything about.
That's pretty good.
Did you watch Twin Peaks? Do you know this?
I watched Twin Peaks when I was in high school. So it hasn't been long at all. I'm young and virile.
I literally have no idea who he is. I just went to the Wikipedia page for Twin Peaks characters and just picked one.
Excellent. Now we are expecting everyone to draw up our
various ships. I can't wait for the Megazord and the Superhuman Samurai. That's
a good one.
What's that genre called? Like the genre that like the sort of Power Rangers genre of like big robots coming together to do a thing. It has a name, doesn't it?
It does.
I know you don't typically anime doesn't really fit in your typical comic book genre, so I don't expect that it's a Japan thing.
I did a video a long time ago about this Spider-Man.
The big one is the cat one, right? Thundercats.
Thundercats is big one. What if we ship Special Agent Dale Cooper with one of the Beyblades from Beyblade?
Or what if Special Agent Dale Cooper with Officer Coop from Stranger Things.
His name is also Cooper, though, right? Are there multiple Coopers?
Yeah, it's a Cooper.
Hey, you can send fan art of all of the ships we did to our Twitter account at probsnotaliens while we still have a Twitter account.
Yeah.
Who knows what that website's up to?
We're verified now. I just paid $20 for it.
I paid $8 a month to be verified on tweet.com.
I do love that very soon being verified on Twitter is going to be relegated to the same status as having a hexagon thing where every post you have, you're just going to be made fun of.
All it will signal is that people can bully you and should bully you. What else should we promote? You've got stuff that you do.
Yes. I'm Tristan. Hi. I make YouTube videos on a channel called Step Back at stepbackhistory.com. If you're watching this, it's late November. So my latest video is on the apocalypse and American culture's obsession with the apocalypse. And specifically about how that feeds into the far right. And then I use the case study of Y2K and how a rather small computer bug caused a whole bunch of people to think that the end was near and drove them into the hands of weird far right people.
Well, that'll be a nice little appetizer as well for...
Yeah, what are you up to?
When we do this, we're going to do an episode of the podcast later this year, which will also be about a time when we were all supposed to die.
Yes.
Right?
Yep, that's soon. That's probably in about a month from the time of this episode coming out.
Fantastic. So you're on a roll with those topics. I have a YouTube channel called Nerdsync, Nerdsync. I've talked about it a couple times on this episode.
Let that nerd sink in.
Hey, I make video essays about cartoons and comics, and I made some Scooby-Doo stuff recently. I talked about why Scooby-Doo has a laugh track. I think that episode's very good if you want to go watch that. I've got a bunch of stuff about Namor coming up this month, so please watch it because I don't like Namor, but I'm diving into the history of Namor and also the 1966 cartoon.
See, we need people like you because as Marvel starts hitting the bottom of the barrel of their best characters, they have to introduce new nostalgia characters, and everybody wants to be the person who pretends like they know what a Namor is. You're like, yeah, Namor, sure. Yeah,
I mean this is not me trying to I'm not gatekeeping or anything here but this is genuinely how the internet works. Is a Marvel trailer will happen and then the next day everyone is an expert on whatever character or teaser or something that happened. But I am here to not really be an expert on a character's whole history, but rather be an expert on the very beginnings, how they were created. What's a weird thing about their history?
My favorite Nerdsync videos are the ones where you're delving into the comic book, into a history of comic book industry.
Yes,
the one about Ditko hands, the one about Jack Kirby's collages. All of those are really good.
Well, thank you. And the Namor video will be very similar. I'm going to dive into the real world history of Namor's creator,
John Namor.
Jonathan Namor, who really just made a self-insert character. Huh?
I don't even know what Namor's deal is. What's his thing? Because he's the new Thanos, right? They're doing that?
No. Namor's he's a hero, but he's a dick about it. That's his thing.
Oh, it's Marvel's Aquaman. Okay.
Yeah, he's the wet one. He's the wet one with the wings on his feet.
I always say that every Marvel and DC superhero that is good has a crappier one that the other ones did to fill the niche. So this is Marvel doing Aquaman.
Yeah, but Namor came out first. DC did Aquaman, and then they, in my opinion, did it better.
Oh, interesting.
Anyway, hey, please write reviews of this show. If you like this show, you can write reviews. Did you know that? Tristan, did you know that?
I've heard rumors.
You can write reviews of this show on Apple Podcasts, and I think you can even rate it on Spotify, and we love all the people that do that. Thank you so much to everyone. And occasionally I read out people's names, but they're not in front of me right now. I'm going to make up some names. Thank you to Bob Ross.
Namor.
Steve from Blue's Clues. Namor's Wet Feet. That's that username. Thank you to Namor's Wet Feet for writing a review.
Don't look
Apple
at that
Podcasts.
guy's internet browsing history.
Do not. And all the other nerds who write reviews for this show. Thank you so much to everyone. And tell your friends about it. Mm-hmm. Tell your friends about this show. Why should they do that?
Podcasts don't have recommendation algorithms, so word of mouth is really the only way that this show grows. And so if you think that there are people in your lives who like this show, lots of dads who would like this show. If you think that you are or know a dad who would like this show, send it this way.
If you think that you're a dad, you might like this show.
And there are all sorts of dads. There are boy dads, there are girl dads, there are non-binary dads. Dads come in all shapes and sizes.
There are dads who don't have kids. Absolutely.
Yeah. Dad is a state of mind.
It is. Maybe we're all dads.
We're all.
Just do the Good Burger song where he talks about he's a dude, she's a dude, I'm a dude, we're all dudes, but it's just dads instead of dudes. You go. Yeah. And a great place to send people is probsnotaliens.com. It's got links to all of our links to all the places you can listen to this podcast. We're on YouTube. If you want to watch it there and subscribe there and let us make AdSense off of this podcast, that would be amazing. Mm-hmm. Please do that. Please subscribe and listen on YouTube so we can monetize this podcast and make money off of it. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Otherwise, this is the longest outro we've ever done.
Yeah.
So I think we're done. My name is Scott Nicewander.
And my name is Tristan Johnson. And keep in mind that the truth is out there. Probably. Clamp and Fisto.
Clamp
He-Man.
and Fisto?
Clamp
no,
and
those aren't
Fisto.
real those can't possibly be real character names.
Sorry, Clamp Champ and Fisto.
Clamp Champ. See, that's much better. That makes sense. 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 Better. That makes sense.